Welcome to Loren Reads to You. Today we're reading The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me. So make sure you're following or subscribing wherever you're listening or watching this. And if you haven't heard or watched chapters 1 through 21, you might want to save and pause this and come back to it until you've done all those. But it's up to you. As long as you're ready, please get comfortable, get cozy, and let's get into it. Chapter 22. Detective Brewster sat staring out the driver's window of his police vehicle. He was lost in his thoughts and far away staring at the crime wall at the back of the office. Detective Thorne startled him silly, opening the passenger door. "They were out of gluten-free bagels, so I got you a sausage, egg, white, and cheese in a wrap. And here's your coffee." "What? Did you forget I was coming back?" Thorne chuckled. Brewster looked so startled it was humorous. "I was a million miles away. Thanks for remembering I can eat the wrap here." "Ha! Hard to forget, having a health-conscious partner who won't even eat bacon because of cop/pig jokes." "Then because you don't like it." Brewster laughed. "Hey, come on now. You know also it's a lot less healthy for you than sausage." "Yeah, right. That's the real reason. And by the way, I don't know if I'd use that as your reasoning. It sounds like pure bullshit." Thorne rolled his eyes and chuckled. Brewster had admitted during drinks one night it was the cop bacon jokes that was his real reason. Thorne wasn't likely to ever forget that one. Shaking his head, he said, "Okay, Brewster, what's the plan?" "I say we go back to Miss Winthrop's and see if she can remember anything. We'll ask every person who works at or on that property if they saw anyone unusual hanging around and pray we discover something," Brewster said. "Roger that. Okay, then. Make it so, number one," Thorne exclaimed with a salute and a chuckle. Brewster just gave him a look and then shook his head. "What? Such a dork." "Health nut. Nothing wrong with that." "Ditto," Thorne said with a determined nod. Both detectives laughed. When they arrived at Mrs. Winthrop's house, Brewster looked at the front door and squinted. "Do you see what I see?" "Shit!" Thorne exclaimed as he jumped out of the car and immediately took his Glock from its holster. Brewster did the same thing. Their eyes scanned the property while trying not to look away from the front door as well. Any sign of movement was searched for but not found. The birds even seemed to go dead. That thought made Brewster's heart pound even faster. Thorne could feel the adrenaline and fear pounding in his ears and filling his throat. Silently, they made their way to the front door. It was open and looking like it was kicked in. The door was splintered and broken, especially around the door handle. The frame itself was damaged and bent. Brewster nodded to Thorne, who took the cue to slowly push the door completely open. The sound was like a mausoleum vault door opening from some 70s horror movie. The creaking and groaning only made the feeling more ominous. Then there was only silence. No sounds of movement were heard at all. They waited for their eyes to adjust from the blinding Savannah sun to the dark, tomb-like environment within. Brewster and Thorne looked at each other for only a second. They could tell they were both afraid and very worried about what they would find. The first thought was, where was everyone? The next thought was, please let everyone just be out. Thorne stepped into the entrance first, then Brewster. They began to go in separate directions. They checked each room on the main level before meeting back at the second floor staircase. The bedrooms were only accessible from the second floor. Thorne and Brewster worked each room together. They started with the father's room at the far left side of the house. Nothing. They worked their way as silently as possible down the long hallway until they were at the other end. Thorne held his breath with determination and went into the maid's room, which was next to Miss Julie's room. It was pristine and back to how it was before the peeping-tom messed with it. At this point, the detectives were extremely worried and secretly praying and praying and praying everything was actually fine. They know it couldn't be true. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was destroyed, but the front door was broken in. That just doesn't happen without some reason or result. Julie's door was closed. Thorne looked at Brewster, making sure he was ready with a nod. Thorne threw the door open and almost puked. The door opened into a long, narrower, much more secluded hallway, and then to another door that connected to a wooden spiral staircase that led down to Julie's first-floor suite. Usually, it was elegantly done and made it seem like you walked into a different location entirely. It certainly felt like they had. They looked through the doorway this time, and it truly felt like a different location. Instead of elegant and beautiful, it was now a hellish, vile nightmare. The hallway had blood and bits of flesh all over it. It was obvious what had happened. The bedtime killer surprised her at that door and began to instantly attack her there in that hallway. Blood was just starting to congeal all over the corridor beige carpet. After the initial attack, the perp dragged her down the cascading steps. You could see bloody marks all over the staircase. In her bedroom, it was so much worse. Detective Brewster and Thorne opened the door to her bedroom very slowly. The perp could still be inside. They had to be objective and as careful as possible, even when face to face with such carnage. Oh, fuck. Thorne began to retch, but was able to keep it down. Oh, holy crap on a cracker, Bruce whispered in horror. Neither of them expected to open the door and be face to face with Julie Winthrop's herself. Especially not like this. Julie Winthrop's bloodied head was propped up on the pillow, just like the other victims. Just like all the other victims, Julie had her eyes and mouth still wide open. A bloody, fluid, smeared, covered pillow was in place of where her body should be. They found the rest of her body was in the shower. The water was still running. She was naked, wet, bloody, and headless. Thorne looked at it and made the sign of the cross. Brewster roared with rage, wanting to punch and smash everything in sight. Dispatch, this is car 420 requesting CSU and the medical examiner at 137 Joanna Avenue. Please alert the captain. This is definitely another bedtime killer victim. Copy that. Right away, detective. Detectives Lament and Reynolds arrived 20 minutes later and was just staring at the carnage with stunned silence. It was hours later, and the detectives were baffled still, looking around, hoping for answers. It's bedtime, baby. The words were scrawled on the wall above the decapitated head in what had to be the victim's own blood. The CSU department had finally, but only unofficially, confirmed it was the same fingerprints as all the other crime scenes. That is chapter 22 of The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me. So make sure you're following and subscribing wherever you're watching or listening to this. And if you're enjoying this, make sure you get your own copy through Amazon. It comes in paperback and Kindle. So get ready and join me for chapter 23. See you then.